I had a little spinner on YouTube saying going live, so that would have sucked. But it looks like we're working everywhere. I even have a chat overlay, which looks like it's getting cut off in a really awkward place. But we're just gonna have to live with that, I guess. And yeah, my chat, I'm trying to see if it's actually keeping up, because usually once I start speaking, people start typing stuff. So if you are here, or if it is working, let me know, because I don't see, oh, it is. Okay, good. I only have one chat open. I'm using Caster Labs Caffeinated, which is doing the chat overlay that you see, and I can also have that off like on my second screen, and I can follow along with one chat, which is awesome. So it's just combining everything together, which makes my life so much easier than having to look at two different chats. Yeah, I see people over on YouTube also commenting now, so YouTube appears to also be working. So thank you all for coming and hanging out. I think it's gonna be fun. We're here today. It's probably gonna be a shorter stream than usual. I want to stay focused on what we're gonna be doing, and that's gonna be it. And I do have other stuff that I should get done during the day as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a shorter one. But we're gonna be looking at reading flow, which is a new CSS property. And we're gonna be just exploring it for my very first time doing anything with it other than having heard Rachel Andrews talk at the last CSS day where she talked a little bit about it. Now it's actually in a browser that I think should work, but actually we'll see if it works or if I have to enable anything, but we'll see how it goes. I see Ayub Dev saying they can't wait to see my tutorial about shape. I'm looking forward to that too. I haven't played with that either. That could be another live stream for another week to look at it. I think live streams like this could be fun to do more experimental or new things that aren't in all the browsers yet, and then save like actual tutorials for things that have a little bit better support. But there's actually a reason that I'm going with this specific one today. Let's try this view out. This Meld has some better transitions. So we can sort of do something like this and take a look, and let me zoom in a little bit in on this. So this is from Rachel Andrews' blog. It is linked over on YouTube. I'll put it in the chat for anyone who's on Twitch. It is in the description on YouTube as well. And so reading flow is shipped in Chrome 137, which is really, really awesome. And so here I'm really excited that reading flow and reading order properties are in Chrome 137, which is currently in beta, and will be Chrome stable as of May 27th, which is just around the corner. It's next week. This, I think, I'm going to talk more about that in a second. How new is the property? This was May 2nd, so it's been a little bit now, but it's only in, it's not actually in Chrome stable yet. So it is quite new. Finding a way to deal with the visual source order disconnect created by grid and flex layouts is something that I've kept, so Rachel, has kept returning to ever since grid shipped in browsers. It turned out to be far more complex than the original proposal I made in 2022, but I think that we've now specified and implemented in Chrome gives us what we are aiming for and more. The part that makes me a little bit concerned here is that they're saying it's going to Chrome stable in May 27th, but then down here they're also saying we really need you to try this out. So I'm going to skip a bit this. We'll come back to this part, but what we really need, and this is why I decided to do this as a live stream and not, I wanted to talk about this sooner rather than later, which was there's a lot of scope for edge cases with something that touches focus order. We want to find and fix any actual issues when used in practice as opposed to thinking up theoretical problems. You can raise bugs against the spec here, so if ever we find anything, maybe we'll do that, or bugs in the Chrome implementation here. So this is against, if there's problems with the spec, you say here, because that's about the spec itself. And if you find something that's not working in Chrome, but the spec, it's, you know, it doesn't follow what the spec says, then you issue it as a Chrome bug report. Whenever I've talked about this issue, lots of people have told me they want this problem fixed. If you're one of those people, check out what we're implementing and make sure that it works. If we can show it's working, that will make a case for other browsers to implement this so it can be part of baseline. And this is why I don't like that it's actually shipping to Chrome 137 as part of the stable release. I think it should be behind a flag until it's been properly done in the spec, because then what happens is once people start playing with it, which they want, and I think that's part of the reason they ship it, but it always makes me concerned that it's even like anchor positioning. a lot of the properties changed for anchor positioning once it was already in browsers, because people, I think, were playing with it and gave suggestions, and the spec hadn't been resolved yet. And it's sort of like we went from the era of having flags on or not flags. We had the era of prefixes, which were the worst, right? Nobody wants to go back to having prefixes. But basically the prefix was there to say, like, the spec has implemented something or it hasn't, and we're implementing something else, whatever it was, but we're not following exactly what the spec is. We're trying to introduce this simple thing. We're trying to introduce something or whatever. It's not something that's not in the spec or following the spec properly. And so we're going to put a prefix on there just to say, like, this is our implementation of it, sort of. Then things generally started going behind flags a lot of the time. The problem I know that happened with flags, having talked to people on the Chrome team, is that when it's behind a flag, not enough people use it. So they don't actually get feedback on it. So I guess maybe this is like they need enough people using it to find the problems with it. But the problem is then if it's in the browser and then you have to change how it worked when people have sort of learned how it works in Chrome. Anyway, it is what it is, I guess. We're stuck with it and how it is. But yeah, that's my little rant on shipping things to stable before they're even in the spec. I don't know. I don't know what stage this is on. Let's go. The specification is here. Let's go check out the specification. Yeah, it's part of a working draft. I know there's a lot of things that are in drafts that are in all the browsers. And that, anyway, I don't know. We're going to actually be looking at the spec today. We'll see how clear it actually is, because sometimes the spec can be scary, but I've never used it before. So we'll probably end up there, because I don't even know if there's anything in MDM yet on this either. Let's catch up on the chat a little bit, and then we'll dive into the topic just to let more people get in here. Terry D, I hope you're doing well. Another Haligonian, but off in Ottawa. Hopefully it's warmer in Ottawa. It's freezing here right now. Mike's here. Hey, Mike. Thanks for dropping in. Hope you're doing well. Awesome. A lot of familiar names in here. Thank you all for coming, and some new names too. As far as learning... Cult 1010 asking the fundamentals in CSS in 1 minute. I don't think I could do it in 1 minute. And for FXNBH asking about how to learn JavaScript, I'm the wrong person to ask on that one. I'm not going to be at CSS Day this year, sadly. I really wish I was going to be at CSS Day, but I can't make it this year, but I will be in New York City around the same time if anyone wants to do a CSS workshop. I'll be with Smashing Magazine for a one-day in-person workshop. For anyone, if you just look up Smashing Conference and look up their workshops, it's a one-day one I'm doing there. Yeah, I wish I could be at CSS Day though, but maybe next year. All right, so how many people here read the spec? I'm hoping not many. You shouldn't be reading. If things are done properly, you shouldn't have to read the spec. The spec is not meant for like regular consumption, I don't think. But let's dive in and see if we can get this working. I don't know if Rachel did anything here talking. I don't want to read her original one. So Google does have an article here. I didn't link this one below. I did link this one, and I'll put this just because I came across it the other day. And so that, yeah, I came across this article the other day, which reminded me that this was actually in browsers, or in Chrome, I should say, and I want to take a look at it. So thank you, Chris, for posting about it. And then we have this one here. I'll put that in the chat as well. And thank you, B1, for putting that link in the chat. I should just... Oh, it opened in the wrong window, of course. This is my Smashing comp. Oh no, it cut off the link. Workshops. New York. No, that's the conference. Workshops. Oh, I don't even know how to find it now. Online videos. Oh, this one, in-person workshops. We found it eventually. There we go. I'll put a link. I'll put that here. So yeah, if you're interested and you're going to be in New York, and especially if you can get your company to pay for it, it'd be a good time. Let's jump and make a new code pen now. Pen.new. I saw someone asking how I my best resource during when I'm like learning something new or doing research. Like, what resources do I use? I do a lot of MDM, so you got to thank everybody at MDM for the work they do in making things more readable. I do go into the spec at times, so I am one of the people who actually reads the spec. And I think we'll do that a little bit today, just to explore it a little bit, especially if we can't figure things out. But yeah, we'll get there. And the website I'm using right now is CodePen, if it's, I'm assuming, the one I have on now and it's not a chat delay. Codepen.io. All right, so let's just do, I'm just gonna on here, font family of serif, or we'll do system UI, it looks better, system UI. We're gonna do padding of like 2 rem. Let's do a big font size on here. We're making a really simple demo right now. This is how I learned something new that I've never touched before. And I think it's on a really important thing. We'll talk more about, as I go through it, why I actually think this is probably the most important update to CSS we've had in a really long time. But we'll get some stuff on here. So I'm just going to do a grid. And let's do some cards. So what should be in our card? We'll do an H2. Actually, let's do this a bit faster. We're going to do a card times 6. The cards inside each card will have an H2 with a little bit of text plus a paragraph. Let's do this again. Paragraph with some text, maybe 20 words, and we'll have a link that has lorem 2, just so we have some content in those. An image or other stuff could be nice, but we'll start with this. I probably shouldn't have made such a big font size now that we're doing that. So let's drop back. We don't need to declare the font size. We'll stay small. For those, let's come in. So we'll do a dot card is going to have a background of HSL 0%, 100. No, I like doing just as a really simple thing. You set just like a pure gray, and then you just drop the opacity to like a 0.1 or a 0.2. It doesn't look fantastic, but then if you have a light or dark background, it's always going to give you a little bit of contrast. So for simple demos, it's perfect. Border radius on rem. And let's just set up our grid really fast. Display grid template columns. We're gonna change our grid template columns eventually, but let's just do an repeat of auto fit for now of a min max 300 pixels 1 FR. So we have something that's there, and we should probably put a gap on here of 1 rem. And there we go. We have a nice responsive grid and everything's working. And we're gonna do one more thing just to we're gonna make our links have a font size of 2 rem because I want my links to stand out. And we're gonna give these a hover and a focus visible of let's say outline, just so we can, I want to make these really stand out. We're gonna say 2 pixels solid. We'll do orange because that should stand out. Orange red is a bit nicer than orange, and we'll do an outline offset of like 5 pixels, and the color of them will also we'll make the color of them yellow. It's not going to look pretty, but that's okay. So now if I hover on them, we can really see them, or if I tab through them, we can really see them. Awesome. Just catching up on the chat. Really fast. If there's specific questions, I'm not going to be jumping into them today. On other times I do like taking random questions, but I'm going to be staying on topic for today. Maybe at the end, if this goes faster than planned, I'll do some general things in there. My Canadian is showing. What's coming out of my Canadian? Usually it's when I say Z index, but I'm sure there's other things that slip through that I don't realize. Sorry, I meant to mute there, but I didn't make it in time. B1 saying my only JavaScript content and it was really good. I think the reason that intersection observer video is really good, And in general, I think when I do some JavaScript stuff, I need to make sure, like I'm teaching it from someone who didn't know it at all to begin with. And so I cover like every problem I run into along the way, or confusion or other things. So I really come from it from like the beginner perspective. So I think it's good for teaching as well. Daily, I'm using a tool called Caster Labs Caffeinated for the chat. It also works for, they have other stuff too. There's widgets, alerts, and other things, but I haven't set any of those up. I don't think. Maybe I have some stuff on. Oh, I did set these up. I don't know if that worked. It did work. Awesome. I said eventually the chat will be able to do these, but I had this originally when I was streaming a lot more on Twitch. But I set up a new thing, so there's an API call. So I just have to figure out how I can get the chat to hit the API call thing I put up for these, because I can do it from my Stream Deck. It's Twitch chat's easy. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to do it with YouTube, or even Caster Labs. I might be able to with the chat command. I'm not sure. I have to figure it out, but they won't work. the old Twitch commands won't currently work. Sorry. What tool do I normally use in your CSS battles? What do you mean by that exactly? All right. So let's say, oh, I just realized, I'm sorry. I just realized my face is on top of some of these cards. So the reason that, getting more on topic of why this is really important is, like, normally when you're tabbing through something in the tab order of things, it just goes through the normal flow. So as I tab through, it follows the flow that you would expect it to. The problem always with grid and with flexbox is that you can change the order of things. So actually for now, we're gonna keep the grid class because I don't feel like changing it, but we're gonna say this is a flex. We'll say that this has, we'll say this has a flex wrap of wrap. And we're gonna say that, let's do, just because this is flex now, width would be 300. That would sort of give us the same thing-ish we had before. We'll do a flex 1 on that too, I guess. Flex 1. Did not work as I thought. Whatever. It's good enough. And then let's just say for fun we do a flex direction row reverse. Not resize. What's row resize for? Row reverse. And then now we're actually like switching like my tab order, right? Like I'm here. Let's go to this one actually. So if I hit tab, I'm here. And if I hit tab again, actually that one would be the last one. But here, my tab order is backwards. So let's go on this one, which is my first item. And if I hit tab, we're there. If I hit tab again, I'm here. And now it goes backwards, which is really awkward. I think I've seen several sites that use this because they use the row reverse just to easily switch things at different screen sizes. And like, it's so weird. I come across and then down. And row reverse is also weird when you have row wrapping on. Because if we start here, which is the first item, so it goes backwards, and then it goes backwards through the next row too, because it's just each row being reversed. It's so bizarre how it does that with flex wrap. So this is a problem, and the same thing can happen with grid. So if we bring grid back on, we'll comment these out because we'll probably turn them back on later. So if I come back in, and actually we want to take this out as well. So the same thing, let's just come down on, we'll just make a selector here. So we'll say grid nth child 3. We'll give it a different background color. We'll say it's going to be, or no, we'll give it a border just so it stands out. Border, 3 pixels, solid red, and, or I'll do dotted white. Let's not do solid, let's do dashed. And then we're also going to say that the order is 1. And that should change the order. There we go. We've pulled it out and changed the order. And actually, I want -1 because I want to make it go the first one. And we'll also, this is could be like your, you know, you have a class on there, a modifier class. I realize I'm under the chat now. I forgot that I had the chat on. I do apologize. So order of -1. And then we can do a grid column of span 2. This would actually break things if you did it at small screen sizes, just so you know. that would break the min max that we have here, because now we're always going to have 2 columns. So not the best example. But yeah, we have this, so it looks good. This could be like your featured card. You're trying to promote it, so you have a modifier class. But now my tab order is broken because I go from this one to this one, and then I hit tab again, and we come up here. So the purpose of this new reading flow, sorry for the flashbang, this new reading flow property and the reading order is to fix this problem, which is amazing, and it's going to make grid ordering stuff and using different flex things that change the order of things not be bad for accessibility. So all of a sudden they become useful. And one of the reasons, I know Rachel's been pushing on this a lot, is with the introduction of Masonry, or the potential, whatever's happening with Masonry, or not happening with Masonry, I don't know at this point. But with where that's going, one of the big issues with it is it does bring a lot of things completely out of order in a way that we don't have any control on. It's the browser sort of figures out an order. And so we could fix it or not have to worry about that anymore, because we're going to do it. And I don't know how it works. All I know, if you saw the thumbnail of this on YouTube, is there's some weird stuff we have available. Like we can do, we can do a reading flow of flex visual, flex flow, grid rows, grid columns, grid order. What's interesting with these, and this isn't the actual spec, and this is all I've really looked at so far, but when you look at these, or we have source order or normal, and I can't figure out the difference between those two, because the initial value is normal, which means that's just, it's going to be normal if you don't do anything. But normal follows the order of elements in the DOM, and then source order, it applies to all the different types of layouts, creates a reading flow container, and enables the use of, it enables the use of reading order property on direct, so reading orders for direct children. That's interesting. Other than respecting the reading order property, follows the order of elements in the DOM. That's interesting. Also, because this is working on block layouts, it makes me wonder if we're going to get the order property available on block layouts eventually. Like, to me, this is them going, that could be something that happens, so we're going to make sure that there's a way of dealing with that. That's my guess. Because if not, like, why bother with that then? So then we have the flex and grid ones. So these, to me, seem a little bit like, okay, we're going to play with this. But for me, it's a little bit annoying that we can't have one that covers both. Like, so then you just do the source order, but the source order goes to the reading order, which I don't even know what the difference between source order, or not source order, reading flow versus reading order. We're going to have to get there. So we're going to open reading order in another tab too. Maybe, you know what, we're going to go first to this one, the spec to try. Chris made a pen, but does he look at how it works? He doesn't. Should I look at Chris's code pen, or should I go check out this article? The reading flow property controls the elements are exposed in the accessibility tools and how they get focused using linear sequential navigation methods. It takes one keyword value with the default of normal. Yes, reading order. The reading order property lets you manually override the order of items within a reading flow container. To use this property inside a grid flex or block container, set the reading flow value on the container to source order and set the individual. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so if I understand this correctly, I hope this is enabled. Like, I hope this is I opened Chrome Canary, so I'm guessing. I didn't even check though about Google Chrome. What version am I running? 138. Okay, we should be okay. So if I understand this, this is reading flow. Yes, we want reading flow source order to start with. Where's my code pen? So on the parent, we're going to choose reading order source flow. Okay, then that won't change anything yet, right? If I tab through these, they're still backwards. Now, where I've purposely brought the order of my element to a different order, now I can do reading order. What did I use above? Was that one a reading order? Oh man, this is going which one's reading flow and which one's reading order? Reading flow. Okay, the other one should have been reading flow. Because when I was looking at that, I was like, if the order and the read... Okay, so reading order would stay here. I'm going to put a 1 just for fun and see what happens there. And then this one would be reading flow. So let's come on our first element, which is this one. Hit tab, tab, tab. It's still going wrong. Now, what if I did a -1 here and it works the same way as this? Whoops. It still doesn't seem to be working. Okay, we're going to try then. So that's using the order property. Let's try doing something else, because maybe... I'm just curious. Maybe I need the experimental flag on, because I think I read somewhere that you did. And if it does have to be experimental flag, then I really don't mind. So it doesn't know what reading flow is then. Invalid property. No, it knows reading flow. Oh, source order, not source flow. That might be why. I haven't been looking. Oh, we fixed it. Okay, tab. Look, it worked. And now I can tab back the other way. What if I put 1 on this one? Just out of curiosity. That still did it. Oh, no, maybe not. Tab. Whoa, that's weird. If my reading order is 1, I'm here. So I'm focused on that. If I hit tab now, I don't know where I'm going. I'm out. Oh, by putting 1, if I put 0, what happens? So, okay, so 0 is the default, which is the same as the order property that we already have. So we have order and reading order are going to work the same way. So that would mean to me here we'd want to do order of -1 because we're changing the order of it. And then you just always would want both of these to be the same, var order, right? So if you're going to change the order, you're doing it. The reading order and the order should just always match. Sort of sucks that that's not the default, but I also understand why that is the case. Do browsers need to adapt to support CSS update, or would it hit all of them? I wish it would hit them all simultaneously. In this case, Chrome is doing this before it's officially agreed on by everybody, I think. Usually what happens is one browser, and a lot of the time it has been Chrome, but sometimes these days Safari is on top of things a lot of the time too, where when the spec is being talked about and they want people using something, they'll create a prototype of it, and then the browser will create one of the browsers, the one who's pushing for this new feature, will create a prototype so people can use it. And then also the nice thing with usually that's when it's a little bit further along, but it's before things have been agreed on, or to see if things are like, everyone can agree like, okay, this is good, or we need to change this. This doesn't work as expected. Like for me, the reading order, one of the things I wanted to check here without having read the spec, I wanted to follow the ways I would assume I would use it, where the -1, the 0, like that makes sense to me. If these had worked in a different way, that would have been something I would have put on their working groups GitHub issues to say like there's a disconnect here. So this is why they want people playing with it. And for me, I like playing with it without knowing what the spec is saying, because I want to see if it works the way I would expect it to work. And if it works the way I expect it to work, then that's a good sign. And maybe there's there's no big issues that I've found along the way. And sometimes it won't work the way you expect it to work, but then when you read about how it's working or why it works, it actually does make sense. But yeah, one browser will ship something, then once it's agreed that that's actually the right way to do it, then you just have to wait for the other browsers to do it. These days, Firefox is the one that takes the longest to implement things, just because the company doesn't prioritize these things. It doesn't prioritize the browser that actually makes the money anymore. Okay, so that's good. I sort of this I don't mind. I'd like people's opinions on that, but this is pretty intuitive. This would be like a nice mix-in too. Once we have mixins in CSS, you'd probably just create an order mix-in that would just set both of them, so then you don't have to bother declaring both. Would that be a function or a mix-in? You could probably do... I guess that would be a mix-in. Yeah, function only would output a value. So yeah, that would be a mix-in that I would create to be able to use that. So reading order to me makes sense. If I changed reading order Let's make them both positive one now, which means that that should go at the end, even though it's not my last item, and it works as expected. Cool. That's it's always nice when things work properly. No, yeah, it seems to work properly. Okay, cool. Actually, I did read. Was it this one we were reading? I think it's mostly around keyboard navigation, right? There was something that mentioned accessibility tools, and the one thing I wouldn't want this necessarily to do is change things with the screen reader. I'm not set up to test a screen reader on this computer right now, so I can't do testing on that. I want to know if the screen reader would still read it in the order that it's in the DOM, or if a screen reader is, and also like the screen readers might not support it yet, which is the other problem, depending on if it's supposed to or not. It might not really matter. Well, no, I don't know what I'd expect a screen reader to do, to be honest. I wonder. I'd have to think about that one a little bit. Okay, that one's done. So let's comment these out. Oh no, I'm going to only comment out reading order because we had those other ones. So let's go back to the spec. Let's read the spec a little bit just to introduce y'all to the spec who haven't read it. The reading flow property controls the orders in which are rendered to speech or navigate. Oh, so it is doing it for speech as well. That's interesting. Huh, okay, I'd have to I guess for me, I'm thinking about every time I change the order of things. Sometimes I change the order on purpose because it makes more sense to have the order different. But in those cases, you just wouldn't actually use the reading flow then. Like I want to, okay, for example, let's look at an example where we wouldn't want to do this now that I read that paragraph. Let's just do it on one of these. But I'm going to come down here on the second card and we're going to add an image. And it's so common, we see this, right? Let's actually just, we're in CodePen, we can just grab an image. This is kind of funky. We'll use copy image small, and paste it in here. And this will not look fancy or good, but we're going to have an image in our second card, which is going to break our layout a little bit, but that's fine. Let's just do an image max width 100%. Or inline size, Kevin. I'm still trying to make that my habit. So we have an image there. Now the problem right now that I've done here is this image is part of this card, which means it should be falling, and we should have alt text on that image. And so technically that image is part of this card, which means it should be part of like this subtitle. And visually, a lot of the time we do this, we have a card there. What makes more sense here is to actually have the H2 on top, because the H2 creates like a table of contents effectively. So by doing it this way, instead of only visually having the image as part of your card, your image is actually like following the H2 I have here. It's part of this content that we have here that we've visually grouped together already. So coming from a semantics point of view, this makes this is just how you should do it. But then you have a design from your designer where the image should be on top. So in cases like that, it makes sense to say any image, or we could even be like more specific of like H2 plus image. So like if the image comes after the title, so it's the first thing after the title, then we could just say the order is -1. And of course, that would mean I need a grid on my cards. But then, and it's going to break my layouts. I'm not worried about that right now. Now, visually, I've elevated the image. I wouldn't want to change the reading order here because I'm just doing this as a visual thing that we see the image before we read the text. But from the perspective of a screen reader or something else, it makes more sense for it to be this way around. So in those cases where you're doing it just for like the correct organization of things, I wouldn't actually use reading order. I only want to do it for basically when tab orders and things break layouts, or if I'm rearranging things a lot for whatever reason, and I want to make sure that we're not jumping all over the place. I still think we need to be careful with this in reordering things, but it's definitely a step forward. I guess I think I could see people screwing with the order of things a little bit in doing this at times, but it's one of those things where it's a tool I think we need to be able to actually do things properly. So it's not the end of the world. In this instance, for me, the semantics of this are really important in terms of having the image come after the H2, because that's literally the structure of the website. And not like, if you open up like your, do we have it in here? I don't know how to do it in Chrome. There's probably a way of seeing it though. But if you get like the tree that's created from the site, like when you're using heading levels, you're literally creating a table of contents for that page. So your heading 1 is the title for the page. Your H2 is sectioning content. Like everyone thinks of the section element as creating sections. It does nothing. Basically, it's a div. The heading elements section your content the same way that a table of contents would do. So your H2 and H3 is a subsection of an H2, and any content that's in there is a section of that website. So I would say it's actually quite important. Matilda, awesome. I went to Concordia way back when. I was in urban planning at the time though, so a little bit of a different realm of those days, but I hope the school's doing well. Section only gets region roles if you have an area labeled by on it. It needs to have a valid name. If it doesn't have a name, the section does nothing. It's a div. Which is really annoying because it's advertised as doing more than it does. Articles are a bit different, yeah. Yeah, I do think sections should just automatically pick the first heading that's in there as their heading. I don't know why they don't. I'm sure there must be a reason why they decided not to do that, but I don't know what it is. All right, so let's try out this other property now. Let's go back to the spec. So we have, I find it really interesting. You can actually order it by columns, which I don't know why you'd want. So grid order to me was, oh, okay, grid order, that makes life easier because then you don't need, okay, we're gonna try grid order first. So we removed our reading order from the individual element, and we're going to come up to here where we had source order, and we're going to say grid order. Now let's see if that tab. Okay, so just by putting grid order on here, it now follows. So we don't need this anymore. We could just do this, and this can go out the window. Tab. It works. I'm really annoyed. The reason, okay, there must be a reason why they did this, right? Because source order, whoops, wrong way, sorry. Let's just try source order again. Maybe I misunderstood source order, but I don't think so. No, okay. Source order only works if you have, and that's what it says in the spec. It says source order will look for a child's reading order. It keeps everything the same unless there's a reading order difference, and then it will grab that reading order. What I want to know is why we have a grid order and a flex order, and not one that could do both at the same time. Unless I'm missing something, and maybe there is something, but based on what I see here, there isn't. So let's just read this a little more. So flex visual only takes effect on flex containers, as the name would imply. Follows the visual reading order of flex items, taking the writing mode into account. So if you switch left to right to left, etc., it will follow that, because row reverse respects that anyway, I believe. Therefore, a document in English with flex direction row reverse and reading flow flex visual would have the reading order go from left to right. Perfect. Flex flow only takes effect and it follows the flex flow direction. Flex flow is when you're dealing with wraps, right? So if you have reverse wraps and other things going on. why would we want, I don't use FlexFlow very often, which is why I clicked through on that one just to remind myself. FlexFlow, row, and wrap. So FlexFlow is the shorthand, right? For flex direction and flex wrap. Curious what the difference is here between the two. I don't use enough reversing stuff in flexbox. I don't use reverse ever with flexbox basically, and I very rarely. Okay, we'll play with that a little bit. Grid rows only takes effect on grid containers, follows the visual order by row, and then we can do follow it by column, or we can follow the grid order for if we change the order of an element, it will follow like we've already seen. This is what, if anybody used to look at the spec and you got away from it, their examples now are a lot better than they used to be. So here's a flex visual, which makes sense. I want an example that's grid. So, okay. So this is why the examples are nice, because the reading flow grid order wouldn't be very useful if you're using grid areas, but just using grid rows makes that useful. We'll play with that in a second. Display flex, reading flow, flex flow. In this example, all 3 flex items are in a row with reading flow, flex flow. The third item in the DOM has order -1. The reading order of these would be 3, 1, 2. Okay, so they're showing... No, I'm confused now. So flex flow works with order. But why? So I can't figure... If anybody in the chat could tell me the difference between flex visual and flex flow right now, I'd really like to know what the difference is. Yeah, let's play with... We're going to try a few different things here now. So let's make our grid. Do we keep this? Let's make a little bit more of a weird grid. So we'll get rid of you. Let's do a grid template areas, just so we can make a funky grid here. And we're going to say 1, 2, 2, 3. Then we're going to do a, whoops, that 3. Then we're going to do a 4, 4, 4, 3. I should have put these in a different order. We'll change this. Let's just say 1. Let's make this a 6, just for fun. And then let's just do dots for the bottom. We're gonna, okay. That's my grid area. We're also gonna say that my grid auto columns, because this is creating columns, I think this would work. Let's just say it's 300 pixels. Let's see if this does what I want. I need a semicolon here. I always forget my semicolon when I do grid template areas. So that's too big, but it's working. 220. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I do have 6 cards, so that's good. So let's come down back to here, and we're just going to remove you from here and come in with this because it's going to be easier to do nesting on this. And I'm going to take my order off of here. We can take all of that off, actually. We can keep the border just so we can visualize it and see it. We're going to say that this is grid area of 3. And then we're going to say nth child of, I forget what numbers I said we had. 2, 3, 4, and 6. 4, 2, we said 2, so let's do 2. Grid area of 2, and we'll give that one a background of pink. Then we're going to say nth child of 4 has a grid area of 4. I don't like pink, sorry, it's a bit too bright. Let's do maroon, so it's a bit darker. We can already see 4 is probably working. And I did a 6, right? So nth child of 6 gets a grid area of 6, and we'll give that one a border of 4 pixels dotted yellow, just so it's different from the other ones. Nth child 6 doesn't seem to be working. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, oh, it's all the way down there. Shouldn't 6 be all the way up here? Grid area. Oh, 6. I wrote the word out. 6. All right. So right now, tabbing is completely broken, right? Because we're 1, 2, or that's, I don't know. This is probably number 1. 1, 2 jumps to here. 3 jumps to there. 4 jumps to there. 5 is there. 6 jumps all the way back up to here. So this does not work. It creates a terrible experience. So then, reading flow, grid order is not working because I haven't used the order property. So I'd have to choose either grid row, which would work the way you'd probably expect it to, where we go 1, nope, oh, it didn't work. Did not work, 1. Whoa, 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 where are we now? We're still completely wrong. Isn't it grid row? Did I mech up? Back to the spec. Grid rows. Oh, that's going to drive me insane. Why would you... Reading flow grid rows. I mean, it's more correct in that, like, you're not doing it based on a singular row. So I get it. That's going to drive me bananas. It's sort of like the one thing I use it a lot, and grid auto flow of column, and then a grid auto columns, and you have to say what it is. And that this being singular is the only time you would put a singular thing anywhere for grid. And this is not up, but I would say grid autoflow columns instead of column would have solved lots of headaches for me. So I get why this is plural now. So I won't complain anymore. So that works. The thing that's a little bit awkward here, but this is something they can't really do anything about because we're going by row. So we're starting here, tab again, we're here, tab again, I'm here. And this is where it gets a little bit funky because it's going in the order of the rows. So we're going from 1 to 2 to 3, and then we're jumping down to the next thing. But it does sort of make this a little backwards, but there's like, that's better than any other potential solution. So I'm all for that, even though it's a little bit awkward. Then if we change this, we can change it to grid column instead, which I'm guessing will go from here. Before I do it, it should go from here to here to here, up, down, and then back up, right? Tab. Where are we? Oh, it's columns probably, right? Plural. There. Yeah, it goes down, down again. Now we're here, down, and there. So that makes sense. I don't know when I would use columns. There's probably certain layouts where I could see that being useful. I'm glad they put it in. I just don't know how often we'll use it. Colin Richardson. To know at the stream, I mean, that's the joy of lives when you miss the start. I don't know what else to say. Once the video is live, it just gets still at this URL, the full replay will be available. Yeah. Yeah, but with Japanese webs, so if you were doing a website where the reading, it's true, with grid, it wouldn't matter. Because like if you're changing the writing, oh, I'm sorry, I knocked the mic. If you're changing the reading order of everything, like not the reading order, the direction to vertical, I was thinking like everything's getting switched anyway, but grid still wouldn't. So grid columns would actually make a lot of sense there. You're right. Vertical writing modes do make sense for grid columns, and there might be other times too if you have a max height on something, because like you wouldn't want it if you're scrolling down on a page, but if you have a height or a max height on something on whatever, I guess it definitely Sorry, I'm mumbling a little bit, but it doesn't make sense. Potentially, like especially if you have a weird layout like this. And again, this would also solve the problem if we turn off grid template areas. Let's turn those off. It's going to reorder and break things because of my grid area names orders. Let's say here, instead of that, we just do a span grid column of span 3, grid column span 2. Actually, no, that'd be a span 1. This will have nothing. We don't need a span 1. That's doing nothing. And then this one will get nothing. Okay, it's doing nothing. Basically, for some... Why is 6 coming up to the top? That's not 6. That's 2? Oh, my order is off. Okay, so right now, because you wouldn't want this, let's turn that off. Our order is currently correct as we tab through this. But if we do the dense grid, which is grid, what is it? I never use dense because it mucked up the tab order. How do we do dense grids? I forget. Kadame, yeah, that could be what it is. I'm going to dive in and check out Flex next. Display grid. How do we... Grid... Is it not grid flow? Grid something. Okay, I don't want to... Grid dense. Grid auto flow. I was close. Grid auto flow. If I just use dense, because that's... Yeah, okay. So in using dense, we screw up the tab order, right? So tab jumps to here, and then we're jumping back up to here, because it's pulled the first element that it can up until this empty area. So if I put grid columns back on, and I want this to be rows, because that would make a lot more sense. Now, if I tab through, it follows the correct tab order. Nice. So grid, it works as you'd expect. I think it's super good. It actually makes dense, like anytime you, this would be my mixin. If you use grid auto flow dense, you're just applying this automatically. And I think it actually makes dense viable to use now, whereas previously it was a bit problematic. And if you had nothing that could be focused on, I don't think it really mattered too much. But in having things, usually if you're doing this, it'd be like your portfolio or something where you have a weird Masonry layout or whatever it is. And having the grid autoflow dense was this useful feature that wasn't really that useful because it could break your tab layouts or tab orders. So, okay, that's cool. Now, I know what I wanted to do. I just looked over at the recording going on. It's actually not terrible, but I wish I could easily add a background behind the chat, which I can't do. I'm going to try and set that up for next time. The only problem is I have so many scenes set up. Like all these are different scenes, and I don't want to have to add the background on every single one of them. It's the only problem for people who missed out at the beginning. I'm using Meld Studio. I still use OBS, but I'm testing this one out, and it does a lot of things really, really well and super easy to use. My only complaint right now is that I can't make a scene that I then use as a layer in another scene. That's something I do in OBS all the time, and it would be super useful to have in here. But anyway, you guys aren't here for behind the scenes recording stuff. I was working with a client where my grid layout would flip itself if they use the direction right to left. Yeah. So if they were doing that, the layout would flip. Would the tab order follow it automatically or not if that happened? Because if you change the direction, I always forget how that impacts things. This is definitely like some people would be like, why aren't like some of these going to become the default? And I think it's because it's very dependent on the situation you're doing, that I don't think any of these could be a default, and it would mess with any sites that would have come up with other solutions to these problems. Okay, so grid is good. So we're going to get rid of grid. Comment all of that out. We're going to put flex wrap back on. So display flex. We're going to play a little bit more with this. So we're going to put a wrap And we'll do a wrap and a row reverse for now, which has, oh, we need this. And I know we have, whoops, code pen. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. So now in this, once again, my tab order is completely mucked up because the row reverse just makes it super confusing. And what if we did a wrap reverse as well? Wrap reverse. Which just makes the whole thing backwards, right? We're literally starting behind my head where you can't see it. I'll take my head off. We're starting here and working our way backwards through the entire thing. So then we can come in with a, I already forgot the property's name. Reading flow, flex visual. That does what I expected it to do. Let's try flex flow now, which should be the same if I understand it correctly. Oh, it's not. It is flex flow, right? This one. It is flex. Only takes effect on flex containers, follows the flex flow direction. So I'm not using flex flow. So let's come here and say flex flow, wrap reverse, row reverse. That is flex flow, right? I don't use shorthands. I don't know if Ragnar's here, but no, that's not. It is working though, because I can see that my things are in the wrong order. Ecamm, yeah, I saw that he's trying it, but it's Mac only, so I can't use it. The main reason I tried Meld is just because you can multi-stream. And now that I've got it set up, other than one or two little things, I'm pretty happy with it. And I know they're doing development on it still, so I'll probably poke around with it from time to time. So if anybody can see a problem with what I've set here, let me know. Because I don't know why this is going the wrong way. I'm here, tab, 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 tab. It's going backwards. So it's following the regular flow. But then why isn't this working? Let's just only try wrap. Like I'm only going to do that. Oh my goodness, that's even more confusing. What? Oh yeah, it reversed wrapped them. So okay, it's more confusing. But I don't find it's not working. Oh yeah, I want to put it back. Oh, I can do it now really quickly. I wanted to before I went live and I forgot for the chat overlay. Is this it? That is chat. That's one, a background color on here would be great, but I don't think there's an easy way. Let me see if I can add a background easily here. I know this is off screen. Let me just see. There is effects that I can add. Black and white, that's not, can I add background? Tint. Can add a gradient. I don't want to blur it. What would fill do? Fill. I don't see a fill showing up. That's bizarre. Oh wait, no. That won't work. Okay, so I could do this really fast just to make it for easier to read. Let's bring you down. That to make it look a little bit better, and we'll just make it really dark. I wish it wasn't cut off on the top. I'm gonna have to resize that a little bit. There we go though. That should be better. I apologize for that. Direction. Flex flow direction wrap. But it shouldn't matter which way around you do the two of them. But okay, row, what if I did row reverse and then just a wrap, just for fun? It's still not working. I don't even... Is this a bug or am I doing something wrong? Let us look. I was hoping there was a typo I was making. Is anything I'm doing down here mucking things actually? I don't think these should just not be doing anything, right? That I had. Let's just look really fast on my grid. See, it's the reading flow is working. There's no, it's not saying it's not working. I feel like I'm just not understanding something. What if we're here? No. Okay, let's turn off wrap and see what happens. We're just reversed. Yeah, I haven't figured out flex flow. Only takes effect on flex containers. Follows flex flow direction. Oh wait, what? Oh no, okay, we're good, we're good. Overriding reading flow, the reading order property. The reading order property, we already played this, I just want to read it fast. The reading order property lets the author change where in the reading flow an item is visited, overriding the position set by the reading flow property on its parent. Yes, okay, yeah. It's a lot of the word flow. It takes a single integer value which specified the ordinal group the item belongs to. Sibling elements are ordered starting from the lowest numbered ordinal group and going up. This is why like the spec sucks to read, because like, that is, but there's a reason they write it this way, is they need to be very explicit when they're writing the spec on how they're going to do it. So like I get why it's like this. This is for the browsers and stuff, but like reading that is like, ugh. If the reading order of two items is equivalent, the reading, that makes sense. Yeah, I get reading order, just like I get it. So I'm not gonna, the source document should express the underlying logic order of elements. The reading flow and reading order properties exist for cases where a given document can have multiple reading orders depending on layout changes in response to media queries. In such cases, the most common, most fundamental reading order should be encoded in the source. Okay, yeah. I'm glad they actually put this in the spec and highlighted it. It's basically saying, like, it's the same we've always said. Just because we can move things around, the way it is in your HTML is what matters. That's the most important. Put it in the correct order in your HTML. And then if the layout changes because of media queries or other things, then that's fine. But definitely follow that as the order should make sense in the HTML before anything else. Some considerations that went into reading flow are: there are clear use cases for disconnecting the reading and navigation order from the box layout order, the most fundamental of which is to make sure the reading and navigation order matches the visual perception order when it is not the same as the box layout order. We have to make it accessible. I'm not going to read through all that. DOM needs a convenient reordering function so that authors, even authors who don't usually write JS, can easily perform source order reordering when necessary instead of misusing order or reading flow. Can easily perform sort. Why is this an issue? DOM needs a convenient reordering function that can easily perform source order reordering when necessary instead of misusing. I'm curious. I'd have to read more about that issue, I think, to completely get it. Are mixins crashing now? I haven't even played with mixins yet. Oh, I forgot. I am in Chrome Canary. We could make a mixin. How do you make mixins? Let's add that to our mixins CSS. Not Sass. Not Sass. CSS. Not Sass. It would be on Oddbird. Mixin CSS. There we go. I don't want a function. I want a. Do I want it? This will only output. Yeah, that's only the. So say, just for fun, I said we would do this if I was going to do it. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Okay, we'll come back to this. I'm going to fork my code pen. Save. Fork. Just so we can go back to that after without having to undo anything. So let's delete you. Let's make this display grid again. Let's... Oh, I deleted everything down here, right? I said... Oh, yeah. Okay, no, it's fine. Let's just do a grid column span... Was it span 2 on that like made everything work okay? This is a grid. We can take this off. Oh, we don't want the grid auto columns. I want... Just turn this on. That's back to what we had? No. Whatever. It doesn't... What if I take off dense? Let's just see what this gives us. Okay, yeah, whatever. It's working. We have an empty spot, and when I have dense, it moves into that spot, which if we weren't using our reading flow, would muck with our tab order. Perfect. So how can we make a mixin? Do mixins have to be declared inside of an element, or are they global? They look like they're global. So I would do this as a... Is it at mixin? Hopefully this doesn't crash Chrome. Grid dense. I should open this in like side-by-side tabs. If I don't have any arguments, do I just do this? Probably, right? And then I would just take these, uncomment that. And then if I want to use it, oh, I need an at result in here first. At result, I guess. I'm guessing based on looking at that. This would move up into here. This seems like overkill in a way for a mixin, but still, like anytime you just need to have two properties always declared at the same time, which might be a bad idea, but let's just see. And then I just do an at apply. So here we can do an at apply grid dense. Does that work? I don't know if I have experimental flags on, or I don't know if I did that wrong, but it's not working. Reading flow flex flow doesn't follow visually, but by element order and according to flex flow. Oh, it follows the flex flow direction? Okay, we'll come back to there in a second. Supposed to launch what from command line? It wasn't working yesterday, so maybe it's better this isn't working right now. Let's just go look in. I don't know if you... Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Did I muck anything up? I did. Oh, crap. What did I break now? What is happening? That was weird. Okay. I'm going to save this. So if it does crash, we have it. I might need to enable experimental features. I don't know. It's a relatively new computer. My grid, I don't even see the mixin in here. Like the add apply isn't even showing up. I guess here you'd even put the display grid, like we could do all of them together. Oh, I do have display grid in here a couple times. Let me go and check. I forgot how to turn on flags. It's... there it is. Oh no, that wasn't it. We want... Chrome flags. No. It's under settings. And then this isn't this just flags? There we go. Available. I want experimental. Experimental. On screen, no. Overlay scroll bars, JavaScript. This one, experimental web platform enabled. I have to relaunch Chrome. That's fine. And let's go back to here. Still not working. Oh well, I'm not too worried about this. That Rob Human, welcome. Let's just see if it's even showing up in here. It's still not showing up. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about the mixin right now. Okay, let's go back to my previous version of this then, because everything else of what we wanted to focus on today makes sense, other than the flex version of it. Display flex, row reverse. Let's go back to the spec. Not that spec, this spec. I could be reading it wrong based on what that comment was saying. Only takes effect, follows the, we're following the flex flow direction. So if we reverse the direction, we're following that direction. But if we use the order that's weird though. Can somebody tell me why we'd want this? Like what would be the use case? Let's see if I'm right. Thank you, who was it? Achu Wali? I appreciate that. The way you wrote that made more sense to me, so I appreciate the comment. So if I understand this correctly, flex flow, if we go on to, where's this? We'll go on that red one. Orange red? Yeah. Order -1. Oh, whoops, that's on my list. Nth child, this one, dashed red. Order -1. Okay. Now if I tab, okay, we're on this one, tab, okay. So it keeps, if you reverse things, it keeps the reversed order of them. So yeah, so the flex flow is ignored, essentially, like not ignored. It works exactly as it was working before you did anything with reading flow, except if you change the order on something, it will follow that order. So when I have an order of -1, it will respect that and treat that as the first item. But it goes in the reverse order. So yeah, why would we want to do that is my question. So for me, and obviously there are use cases, because they wouldn't have added this if there was no use case for it, I'm assuming. Like somebody at one of their meetings said, this could be useful in this situation. And I wish I knew what that situation was. Because if I take the flex flow off, so we just have a regular thing here, it does make sense here. Because now if I tab through, it just does the visual ordering, even though this is my 4th item. Whereas if I don't have that, it breaks it. So now if I tab through, we can see my tab order is all mucked up. So that fixes that if I change the order. So in a way, flex flow makes me think that it's like flex order more than flex flow, the same way that grid order works. So that would be my question, is why call it flex flow and not just call it grid order? Or flex order, I mean. Because it's the only thing it's changing, I guess it's because they want to say we're following the flow of flex. The reading flow is the flex flow, but we're also respecting the order property, is basically what this is. Whereas flex visual, to me, is just so much more useful. Because even if we reverse things, we still get, like, it. Flex visual is like the super intuitive way that it's just going to follow the visual flow of things. And if we do a flex wrap of wrap, which will not, there we go, it's wrapping, it still goes in a way that makes sense. So if anybody in chat could come up with a good reason to do it, I would like to know. The flex flow. Oh, you have to launch Chrome Canary from the command line to be able to use mixins? Huh. Really? Is mixins in here? Let's just look fast. Mixins is in here. I never do cutting edge enough stuff to know that, I guess. Is it talked about here? I don't think so, because this is just about the spec. Not too worried about it. So right to left languages, it should work fine. So like, let's just say we came on this and we said lang, it's lang or dir? We want dir, right? Dir. It might get loud in a second. My son's coming home. Right to left. One second. So yeah, so here when I did the direction right to left, if I take that off just really fast, obviously we screw up, we can't read anything now, but when we do a right to left, the flex order of things also switches. So it still makes sense. Like it's following everything. The flex visual works one way or the other. Because here, if I take that off, now the tab order gets screwed up again. But flex always follows, the flex direction is a logical direction. Laura Misson becomes unreadable. Exactly. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any edge cases I could put this through. Oh, we're here just for fun. Let's turn the flex off and put my grid back on. Oh man, comments in CodePen sometimes. It's not just CodePen, but I muck them up in CodePen more often than anywhere else. What's happening now? Grid auto columns are mucking things up. Let's turn. No, those were good to have. I don't know why I only have one column. This is my problem. Oh, this? No, that shouldn't matter. That broke things even more. Grid auto columns are 200 or whatever. Grid template columns. I don't think I have anything. 1FR, 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 just so we have something. So yeah, if we do, let's just turn this off. So yeah, grid's already dealing with the right to left the same way flex would if we change the writing mode or the writing direction. So, and the tab order already would have been okay, but then it just means if we're reordering things from there, we're gonna be okay. So that makes, yeah, I think let's just, there's no reason why it wouldn't work that I can think of. I'm trying to think of any edge cases or things that would fix what we have here. And I can't think of anything that would do it. Logical as in block start and inline end, the Rob human. Though in this case, I would say that the logical order of it also is logical in how this is working. Ahmed can send me lorem ipsum in Hebrew, that would be... yeah, at least it would make it... It's just so weird seeing like English letters flipped the wrong way around. Like, or the, like, it just looks like everything's right aligned and like you would never do that. And then with like the question mark at the end and stuff and the periods, it just looks bizarre. Even if it's nonsense text. Yeah, I'm the only thing I can't figure out is the thing with flex. Why I would want flex flow. Follows the flex flow direction. But yeah. Whoops, sorry. I'm flashbanging you again. Why would we want that? where I really can't think of a time where I'd want to still keep that following the regular flow and not just do it as a visual flow. But this is also the type of thing that I find happens a lot of the time is I come across these things or I'm like, why would I want to be able to do that? Or how would I ever use this? And in the end, it ends up being like, oh, I'm really glad that I knew about that because I run into some weird edge case that I never thought about before. And I don't remember how to do it, but I'm just like, oh, I remember this type of thing is possible. So yeah. But I still don't know why we want that flex thing. I saw a question. So basically, a quick recap for anybody who's just dropping in now, because I see a few people saying they're coming in. Now that I've played with this, I'm trying to think if I could make a good tutorial on it, like on the fly, but let's turn... No, I don't want to turn that back on because I don't think I have my grid areas anymore, do I? No. Basically, we have this one that has... This is out of order from the rest of my document because I'm using an order of -1. But I can still keep the tab order. Like visually, it follows the correct tab order. And the simplest way to explain that is I have reading flow, grid rows. So it's just the reading flow is saying that I'm just going based on the visuals that we have here and we can tab through. I guess my one thing that I'd like to know is we have a flex visual and then we have the grid rows or grid columns. I guess they didn't want to say, because grid can have the dense layout where there really isn't like a visual flow. I think that's why they didn't create a... I just realized my face was on top of that example I was showing, sorry. Yeah, they didn't want to have a grid visual because it's impossible really to say if something's following a visual order. So that makes sense. I guess the only thing that from... And then that might be why we don't have a single... Like, the source order then follows the reading order property, which we have to set, which makes sense. I think most of the time we're either going to use flex visual or grid rows. I think those are the ones that will be used the most often. Does order work? I just had a flash. 1 second. Let's make a new code pen. Pen.new div times 3. Let's just say 1, 2, 3 HTML color scheme of color scheme dark, font size 3 rem, and font whatever, font family doesn't matter for this one. I'm going to say div has a border of 2 pixels solid and has margin of 2 rem. Should give us a nice margin. Div nth child 2 order -1. Did they bring this into block? No, they didn't. Okay, I was just like, maybe it already exists here. It'd be really nice if we could do something like that without having a display on the parent to change it. And it just makes me, yeah, it really does make me wonder. Oh man, sorry, I forgot. There we go. It's not working. So my nth child 2 is still in the correct order here. It just makes me wonder when you see something like source order where it works for block layouts. Enables the use of the reading order property on direct children other than respecting reading order property follows the order of the elements in the DOM. So like, I can't think of when I would use the source order. I'm trying to think of an example of when I might want to use source order. And I can't, like for me, again, this is probably one of those edge cases where you're happy you have it. Maybe if you position something, so if you have a position absolute, something like that, and it's pulling it out of the flow, they wanted to make sure there was a way that you could actually make sense and change the reading order if you needed it. And then that's still flex visual grid rows to me makes the most sense. I can see sometimes you might want to use the grid columns. The grid order too, like, again, I can see why you might want to use grid order, but it just seems easier to use one of these two instead. But every now and then there could be a use case. Like if they're introducing this, they might as well create the grid order. I just wish there was like a one that would be like good enough 80% of the time. Sort of like a, you know, I don't know what it would be. Visual order maybe, because we have a flex visual, like a visual order that just as the default would be like a combination of flex visual grid and grid rows or something like that. Because that's like a sensible default you could just throw on it no matter what. And then if it's not what you actually wanted, then you could come in with something a bit different. That's the only thing that I could think of that would make this a little bit better. But again, that could, I'm saying it would make it better. For people that learn it properly, it would make it better. For people that don't learn it well, which is most people, I think what would happen is then you'd end up with them just saying it's broken and complaining. So, oh, I'm sorry. I covered up the stuff again. Yeah. I'll improve my chat overlay next time. I do apologize. Would there be a reason for the Chrome team to put it this way only for, let's put it there and see. I mean, a big part of this is to see how people react and see what would happen. Yeah, someone mentioning Masonry order. This is Chrome that's doing this, and Chrome is currently team... oh, am I mixing it up? No, actually, yeah. I guess, yeah, it would just be, instead of Chrome is the one who wants to make it Masonry its own spec, right? So yeah, I guess you have grid columns, you would just get Masonry columns or Masonry rows, is my guess, and how that would work. Amodius, the replay of this will be available. The beginning of it was a lot more concise in what I was talking about. So once I finish the replay, you can go back to the start and it'll make more sense. It's really interesting with the display Masonry versus display grid. It's really interesting. I haven't heard any noise lately, so I'm curious what's happening currently. Yeah, I'm curious what's happening in terms of that. But I'm very much in the camp of like, people either think it's one or the other is the right way to do it, and it's so split in terms of which people think what that I don't think there'll ever be consensus, and at one point they either need to decide, or, mind you, I think they're waiting right now. The delay could be because Chrome is currently prototyping, and I don't believe it's ready. I know they're working on a prototype the same way Safari did for display Masonry, because you can use grid template columns Masonry, or whatever it is. The Safari spec version of it you can use in Safari right now, and I know Chrome is building out their version of it. So the idea there is, because ideas are so split, let's get them both working in the browser for people to be able to use, and then that gives you a better idea which one is actually better. So I don't mind too much. Kirill, there is an example of flex flow on here. It just didn't help me very much, but I get it now. It's just, I don't find it very useful. It's here. So they're just saying like, it will, if you change the order here, this is why it confused me actually, because they don't actually change the flex flow there. They just mention flex flow here and change the order of something. But basically it's because if you did do a reverse, it's following the reverse order in the tab order, but then this just also gets added in, so you're not jumping in a weird place in the middle of it. Yeah, I tried with wraps and everything. It follows the only thing FlexFlow does, as far as I can tell, is it looks at the order property and nothing else. And based on what I read here, and it does make sense that that's what it's doing. I think it is what it is. It's let's let the document do what it's already doing. But then if you do happen to change the order of something, we'll follow that order. I guess my one worry with where going back to the flex and grid thing, or the masonry versus grid thing, I think part of it comes down to how you think of masonry. Let's open up that link. It comes down a little bit to how you think of masonry, and whether you see it as part of grid or not. The way I think of masonry, I see it as a grid thing. And you know what? We're going to talk more about this. We'll take a short break and we'll come back and talk about masonry and grid. I think that will be a good idea. So I'll be back in like 5 minutes. I don't think I have a timer on the screen, so we're just going to throw this up there, and I'll be back soon. Oh no, why does it say starting soon? Oh, I made a mistake. Oh no, wait, I can do a break time. There we go. That works. Okay, we'll be back in 6 minutes. I managed to make it back before the break time, but I will wait a minute just in case some other people were you know, expecting it to be another minute longer. What we'll do while we wait another minute is we'll try and fix my overlay thingy a little bit. It was this face I put the background? It is. Let's see if I can do this. On that rectangle, I can lower the opacity. We'll go with something like that. And then I think I can just paste it here. Cool, that worked. There we go. And then that one's okay. There we go. This is really weird. This is like the one thing that was missing here. I wish this was a little bit less annoying to do. Because now if I go to record like a regular video, I have to turn all of these off. But it's okay. Did I have two? No, I didn't have one there. Do I? I don't know what's going on. There we go. That should be good enough. Awesome. Okay. There we go. Let's see what was going on in the chat while I was on break. I don't see anything against Masonry being another display thing and having its own set of properties, even after similarities to Grid. It has some common stuff with Flex. Then expanding it with new fancy properties would not result in, oh no, we have to make it somehow work with naming conventions and also figure out if it can be added to Grid stuff. Separate equals win. Did I have a Z index issue? I think I fixed them all. I think we're good. We got them all. Oh wait, maybe this one? No, I think we're good now. Oh, it's sort of this scene's gonna be a little bit different. Wait, why can't I do it? There we go. It either needs to be like way off or matching the width of that one. There we go. Okay. Okay, let's look at this actually, since we have it opened. Why does it look so smushed? In my, okay, we're gonna fix this, 1 second. Something looks wrong in the window here. Screen. Was I reading it like this before? It's on stretch instead of fill. That looks better. Okay. That was kind of weird. I might actually turn the chat off. Or no, we'll move the chat over for this one. Overlay and rectangle. Of course, it only moves one of them. Oh, wait, what's this overlay? I don't even know what this overlay is. I have an overlay and I'm not sure what it's doing. Oh, that's this overlay. Okay. That's not even... Oh, there it is. This is the one I wanted to move. Unlock you. There we go. Even if I could group these, it would be better. Okay. Oh man, this thing is screwed. I fixed this. It's another thing with Meld that I'm having issues with. Is it keeps changing like the way my screens are being shown. Because like I don't want anyway. It doesn't. Okay, we'll go back to here. And we'll just expand this out then. That's fine. And make this bigger. Okay, I'll make sure it's not under the chat. I'm not going to go through this entire thing. Let's just see what's going on in chat. Speaking of chat, actually. Stoney's saying it doesn't matter which way as long as we can do it. Flex and Grid, there's a full... You mentioned in your last video the different modes. So basically we have block layout. Block layout's a bit weird because it has two different display or two different layout modes, which are the inline and the block, but they're sort of grouped under one, but they're two separate things. Then we have Grid and Flex are two different layout modes, and then we have the position, like if you add a position to something, which unlocks the top, left, right, and all of that, and how those work. So those are all we have right now. If you look up actually just really fast, MDM, CSS, layout modes, which no one ever looks up, but they do have a full thing on it. So you have flow layout, which has block in there. Oh, table, I forgot about table because Table and float. Oh, float actually is a link. It looks like it's not though. We have table and float, and then you have your positioned. Oh, a multi-column, I forgot to. Multi-column is one. And what's interesting with the... No, I won't get into that. It's fine. Those are the different layout modes that we have. And we will eventually maybe have another one. This is the new unified thing they're talking about. New unified item flow, a new unified concept for layout. Which, if we look at this, and my head's on top of part of it. So, there's the just use grid camp, which is grid template columns, grid template rows collapse. The masonry one, which is display masonry. And then you get masonry template tracks and other things. And then there's the integrated item flow, which would allow, basically you get like this new item flow thing. I don't remember exactly how it works, but I'd look into it. But it talks, this article, I'll put it, it was already linked, but I'll put it back in the chat now. It's a really, I would encourage you to read it if you have time and you're interested in this sort of thing. But it talks about how like we have similar properties here, so we could actually just use an item one that sort of combines a little bit of how they're working with an item flow. And then you get an item direction and an item wrap and item pack. So that's where you have like your dense stuff coming in. And the advantage of this is, this was actually one of, I don't remember what group it was. Does it say here? This was encouraged by, does it say? This was encouraged, I don't remember who encouraged this. Oh, here. It just says the folks working on Masonry. Ask the W3 Technical Architecture group tag to weigh in on the debate. Oh, there it is. It was the W3C Technical Architecture group that weighed in. And in their response, they said, we think Masonry, grid, and wrapping flex should be incorporated into a unified set of properties. So like whether or not we add it, there should be something that like just works across all of them is the idea here. So it's this item flow. Now this is very much in like proposal phase. We don't have anything to play with on this yet. And this article does like a nice job of breaking down. And I think we're going in this direction. But there is, I don't know. That was for the Slack. I think we came up with a better name, and I think it is the tolerance one. I won't get into it, but it makes a lot more sense. It's about when the things are going to wrap. Basically, it's like, no, right now in Flexbox, we're waiting, like the items have to touch before they wrap. This would actually set things up so it's not a gap. It's it's allowing for there to be like this tolerance of allowing things to work better. It'd be good. And I don't want to go through this whole thing. It's going to take a really long time. I don't remember if we have a link to the full thing on it. I'm surprised we haven't got this next steps for Masonry. I'm looking forward to that one. I think I'll do a full video when that lands. What I'm looking for is the GitHub repo for this entire proposal, which they didn't seem to link to here. Because the Chrome team has a different... a different proposal for the same thing. It's just different naming, basically. Nope, it's not that. Darn, I can't find it. And I don't feel like looking for it now because the last time took me a while. But I don't like the names. I put a long response in the GitHub issue for it. But yeah, this would be sort of along with them would be this item thing that we could use for all of them, which I think is a good idea. I think the main thing that came out was we have a lot of similarity between all of these different things. Is there a way that we could just have a singular property so people can understand it a little bit better? And I think that's a really good idea, just because there are these different layout modes and we have to understand the differences between these different layout modes. But that gets really annoying sometimes to like when things work a little bit differently, whereas like this could unify that idea a little bit. And I think it would reduce the hesitance for people who know one of them. Like if you know Flex really well, you might use Flexbox instead of Grid. And so when you should be using Grid. So this type of thing would be like, oh, I already know enough about how this works and this property is going to work in both of them. And so I think it's a good idea because it'll get people using both and probably using them hopefully for better things than what they currently do. And eventually with whatever happens with Masonry happens, and then we'll have already a group of unified properties and values that work across all of them, which would be kind of handy. As far as I've gone back and forth on which one it should be. Like, should it be grid or should it be flat, or should it be its display Masonry, or should it be a grid template columns or grid template rows Masonry? I do agree that there's that issue that maybe we're limiting ourselves by putting it under grid. But I also, like, one of the arguments that was there at one point was that maybe it's going to be easier to learn if it's its own thing. But I actually think, I don't know. One of the problems that happens is what I just mentioned. And I think maybe this is where this idea of having universal properties came out, was when you have things that are like similar but work a little bit differently between each one of the different layout modes you have, that users just get fed up with it. And that was my worry of having a display Masonry where it's like grid, but, and then you're just like, oh, okay. Whereas if it's part of grid, I find it's a little bit easier, but then you still have to make that understanding of like, oh, if I do the Masonry, then these other properties do or don't work, which is weird. Like, you wouldn't, there's a set of grid properties that would just stop functioning as soon as you enabled Masonry. But at the same time, as CSS people, we're sort of used to that, right? Because that's how CSS works for a lot of things. You do a display a position absolute, and you have new properties that you have available. Or you do a display inline, and now you can't do a width and a height. Like, I don't know. There's those things where I don't know which one would be better. I keep changing my mind. I still think it'd be easier to teach and get people on board if it was part of grid, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And I'm looking forward to, once Chrome's implemented it, I'll do a live stream then and we'll compare the two of them maybe. I could put a link to the Twitch. Nope, that's not the right one. That's my dashboard. Someone else can put the link to the Twitch. Oh, someone's saying they found it. Okay, good. The problem with properties having more than one problem is absolutely legit, but I don't think putting Masonry under grid is the solution to that problem. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like so much of it just works and it's fine. But I'm also part of the camp where I'm like, it works good enough. Like, this solves my problems. Maybe I'm not thinking about some of the other problems that could potentially be solved if it was its own thing. So maybe I'm limiting myself a little bit. People do commonly forget the difference with items and content, like align content and align items. So items and content could make problems in Masonry. Using items as common namespace can confuse. Yeah, items and content, the easiest way to, it's also confusing because it's a little bit different between Flex and Grid. I find it's easy to make the distinct, well, I understand both, right? If you're in Flexbox, items is on a singular row, whereas content only comes in when you have wrapping, and it's about like how you're fitting all of the content as a group within a space. It's the same actually in Grid, right? Because the content one, the items are how the items are aligning within their cell, and the content is how all of the content is moving within the space it has available to it. So I think the same, and I think most, yeah, that's actually the most confusing thing, which I know people hate. I've already seen complaints about it, is with, I don't remember what, okay, good, we can see it. Whoops, that's what I wanted. HTML, color scheme, dark. If we do a div with a hello world, and then we say that div has a height of 70 VB, border 5 pixels solid, and I can now do an align, see, I'm already mucking it up. Align content center? Question mark? Yeah, align content center, rather than align items, which doesn't work. But that would be the Flexbox way of doing it. But in a block context, it's align content, because of course it is, right? Because CSS is awesome. then you get justify. Is it? I don't even know here. Is it justify content or is it justify items? It's probably justify items, right? Oh, that doesn't. Oh, if I make this a span, then we could get this to work maybe. Justify items, justify content. One of these should work, no? I thought they added the justify. Maybe they didn't. I know the align content works to center vertically in a block context now. Which is annoying because it's different from how you would think of it if you were in a different, like people are thinking about it in the flexbox way where it's align items. My way of remembering it is use the one you don't usually use and it's going to work in the block context. But the way to think about it is actually this div is basically a grid cell, a grid cell. Thinking about that wrong, but let's just put another span here. Or not span won't be a good idea. Let's make these both paragraphs. Another paragraph and P another paragraph. So yeah, it's essentially like align. Let's do make this div a display flex. And if we wanted to vertically center these, that would, we'd be using the align items center. So that it definitely is weird that it's different. I had a mental model on thinking about why that would work. Correct. Okay. So if we did, no, how was I thinking about it now? You could think about it in a way because it's almost like the flex directions the other way around where then you're using justify though. What was my mental model for this? When it's block, you have to use align content. I think I was just thinking about it as grid in more of a grid context is the way to think about it, to remember that. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm confusing everybody now. Yeah, definitely. Walter asking if knowing CSS will be useful in the near future. I bet if anything, knowing CSS will be the most useful because AI has the least chance of getting CSS correct. Wondering now, why is there no justify items? We do have justify items in grid, and we don't have justify items in flexbox because it doesn't make sense in flexbox. I have a video on it because I don't know if I can find my demo. Let's see if I can find my demo. We'll make a new tab. Code pen. Flexbox. Can we find my demo? Probably not. Maybe I just did flex. I'm not going to find my demo. Flex basis. No, I definitely newest first. Yeah, I would have thought it would have been around here. Huh. It's not there. That's weird. Flex box. One more time. I probably didn't name it. I'm not good at naming my things. I don't have it. But basically, justify items doesn't make sense in flexbox. Is the easiest way to but yeah, try one, and if it doesn't work, you try the other one. That's usually my advice. I think there's never a way to have too many new properties if they're all solving problems. So if they were adding things that didn't solve an issue, then that sucks. But if you're solving problems, then keep adding new features. There's nothing wrong with that. Tendulcar, you're a junior developer. Do you have any words to say? build lots of stuff. You learn through struggle, so don't just follow tutorials. Like, just try and make lots of things. You're a junior, which does that mean you're hired already or not? If you've been hired, then you're fine. You're just going to keep getting better as time goes on. If you're still learning, then it's just like, don't be worried if things are hard and you're struggling, because that means you're learning and you're getting better. I would argue that we should have separate prefix properties for display modes: flex align items, grid align items. Align items and justify content work the same way in both of them though. So I think it makes sense that they're the same. I can definitely find my grid demo, and then we could maybe make that one work for flex. Let's see if I can find the grid one. It'd be older though. I could also look up by video, but I don't think I linked to the demo file. Maybe I won't find it either, but we can look quick. I'm not going to find it either. Grid axis? No. What would I have called it? Maybe I just called it justify. There's the grid one. So the best way to understand grid is to, like, the items is definitely to, like, have your inspector on. So flexbox and grid work the same way here. The only difference is flexbox, you can change the main axis. But if you ignore changing the main axis, they all work the same. So let's just take these off. So if I have my grid of items, the stupid inspector is going away. If you have your grid like that, I have some align selves and justify selves. Is this going to reset my visualizer every time? Okay, good. Place self center, we can turn that one off. So if we do, this is on grid. So if when I do an align items of center, what it does is it centers each item within its cell. And this is why it's easier if you're looking at it with the inspector on, because then you can see the cells and how it's aligning itself. This is exactly how Flexbox works as well. It's taking the items and it's aligning them along the axis that they're on. And that's why we're saying align items. We're looking at each individual item and we're aligning it within the space that it has. Same thing with Flexbox, same thing with Grid. In both of them, it's aligning within the available space. And it's looking at each item individually. This item is centered vertically in the space it has. This one is vertical within the space it has. Same one with all of them. So each one is technically independent of them all, each other, but they're all being aligned within the center of the space it has available. Flexbox Grid align items works exactly the same. So if we did change this, let's see if I change this to flex and I do a flex wrap of wrap, it's probably not going to work the same way. I need a semicolon here too. So same thing. If I put my flex on, you can see it's centering. Let's just turn that off for a sec. Yeah. So when we haven't centered anything, this is how, like, the rows that are being created by the flex wrap. And as soon as I do an align items of center, it looks really weird when you do this, but you can actually see that each one is being centered within the space that it had available to it, because these spaces each technically are getting cut in half. It looks kind of weird in the visualizer, but they're each getting centered in that space they had available. So Flexbox and Grid align items works exactly the same. If we turn this back to a grid and we look at justify items of center, and justify items works in Grid. And the reason that justify items works in Grid is because each one is looking at the cell that it's inside of. So it's able to center itself within the cell because the parent is defining the cell. The items have a space to live in. So we're just taking each item and aligning it within its cell. So justify items works here. With Flexbox, the parent isn't creating any cells. The item is creating the cell. So if the item is creating the cell and the cell is the size of the item that it's in, it's not really cells in Flexbox, but to keep that analogy, when we're centering, like justify item center doesn't make sense because the item is the width of the column. So there is no column, there's no space for each item to be centered on. So that's why on a cross axis, we can't center in Flexbox, but in Grid it still works. Then if we take the content properties, which again, they work the same in both of them. So if we do a justify content of center, it's taking all of the content and is doing nothing. Do I have something getting in the way? No. Uh, why is justify content center not working? Grid. Align, justify items, justify content center is not working because they're taking up too much space. Because I'm using 1FR. If I said this is 100 pixels, now that would probably work. There we go. So when we're looking at grid, we're actually taking the entire grid and centering all of the content. So content always means like take everything and center it within the space. Justify content doesn't usually work in grid because of the problem I just had, where usually your grid is just expanding to take up all the space. So that's why that doesn't work. Whereas with flexbox, same thing. You're taking all of the items and you're centering it, or you're pushing them or separating them, but you're looking at how much space is available and you're distributing that space or grouping them, but you're treating all the items as one piece basically, and talking about what you're doing with them. So it's the same thing again. There, an align item or align content is the same, where I can center. Now I'm centering vertically because I have space, because my parent has a minimum height on it that is hiding there. So we can center within that entire space. So that's why I think it makes sense that they have the properties effectively work the same way. And the way I look at the centering is, you can see the align content of center here, which is taking this group of content and centering it within the div. That's why I think they did it with the block level stuff, because if I take off my block, my display, it won't work here probably without grid. Oh, it is centered. Let's make this a little bit taller. If I make that 80. So we are centering in this space. We're taking all of the content and we're centering it. We're not taking each item and centering them within the space they have available. We're taking all the content and centering it within the parent. So that's why the block level one is using align content and not align items. It's weird because we so rarely use the align content, right? Yeah. We usually do an align item center because we're so used to doing it with flexbox, but it makes sense why they did it the way they did it. Catching up on chat. I do apologize for going quiet. Spur a Tailwind versus native CSS debate. I'd rather not. The AI fixed is me going partially bald because it prompted me to rip it all out. Yeah. There's a Reddit thread. I have a link. One sec, I'll get it. Well, I'll let I won't find it. It's gonna take me too long. But there's a Reddit thread that because you have Copilot in GitHub now, where you can if you have GitHub issues, you can ask Copilot to fix them, and it's somebody found like they linked to like 5 or 6 different repos where it's just people commenting with Copilot, like basically prompting it through the issue to try and fix things, and it just failing over and over again. Native CSS has essentially absorbed all but 2 features of Sass. I'm trying to think what, so the features that are, I mean, mixins and functions are coming. They're not here yet, but they're in development. So loops are never going to be in CSS, and maps, I guess, would never be in CSS, because if you don't have loops, I don't see why I guess you could make an argument for mixins that could use maps, but like I don't think they'll ever bring in maps, and it wouldn't be that hard to do, I guess, because you could, we have custom properties, but I don't think they'll ever I don't see the use case, I guess, as much anyway for maps. And they've already, I have it on good authority that there's no plans on loops ever coming to CSS. But other than that, most things are coming. There's a few other differences too, in terms of how they do certain things. Like nesting is a little bit different between the two of them. But otherwise, There'll be, yeah, it's taking most of them in, but I still like using loops and maps, so I'm still using it. The best feature for nesting, or the best use case for nesting, is media queries, in my opinion. Like if you're never going to use nesting for anything, just being able to come in and have an at media or container query, and 600 px background color is now color, I don't know what my other colors available to me are, red. Right? But this is, if you're not going to use nesting for anything else, this would be my argument to use nesting for this one thing, because it just makes it easier than redeclaring the initial selector. Media queries work on container size now, right? Media queries work on media only. You can do an at container to be a container size, but then you have to have a defined container, because you can see my blue is never changing to red right now. I'd have to go on my parent and say that this is a container type of inline size, and now that will work on the container size rather than the viewport size. The difference between Sass nesting and CSS nesting is very minor now. The only, because there was bigger differences, the only difference now between the two of them is you can't use the ampersand to like make a combined selector, right? Whatever modifier. So like this wouldn't work to do anything, just because it doesn't work. That's the only difference between the two of them right now. I kind of have a problem with CSS nesting because it doesn't allow to use, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so that's the one thing. The Sass people have said that that's one thing that I don't know how they're going to do it, because Sass always works where once something hits a certain level of browser support, which is really, really high, you can still use the ampersand. Like it's still a placeholder for this, but it's a live selector. So doing this would be the exact same thing as writing that, which doesn't work. Right? Like this is still my dot child nth child 5. So yeah, you could do, if you did your modifiers like this, like and with a class, this would work, no problem. You just can't do it where it creates a new selector that's one single selector. But yeah, Sass always says, or always supports features as they come, but once it hits like 98% browser support or something, like it's a really high threshold, then they'll switch to just doing it the CSS way. But they've said that with Sass nesting, they're going to continue doing it the way they currently do. They will switch to just using CSS nesting once browser support is high enough, except they're still going to support this type of approach. Sorry, 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry, someone was at my door. All right. I completely forgot where I was at. What bugs me is, I just want to see if there was anything else on the nesting. BEM creates Tailwind users. This, yeah, the replay of this will be available later. What bugs me is that the Masonry works in Firefox as I need it, but won't. I can't see that whole line. But won't something next? I go from a non-functional dashboard to a functioning one, drives me crazy. Yeah, it's the joy of. I mean, I made a video on Masonry was it probably like 5 years ago now when Firefox added it. But it is good they're making sure they get it right. And there's a few things, like even the Firefox implementation was partial support. They didn't do all of the stuff it was supposed to do. If Sass supported compiling CSS with nesting, yeah, it would need a lot of logic, but I guess they're going to do it anyway. The CSS working group police are coming for me? Oh no. That's okay. I do like I mean, I have good discussions with people that are on the working group. Hero, what browser/engine do I like more? I tend to use Chrome for most stuff I'm doing, just because that's what most people use. So I know if it works there, it's working for 70% of people at the bare minimum. But in terms of, I don't know, I'm not like, I switch between browsers throughout the day depending, and there's no rhyme or reason behind it. Oh, they're at the door. Yeah, I get it. I wish then we could have... Speaking of the working group, I wish CSS Day is coming up and I'm already sad I'm not going. I see a lot of discussion about BEM versus Tailwind and other alternatives for anyone who has been using BEM and is looking for alternatives. I'd recommend checking out Cube CSS. I'm going to tell Andy he has to make a dark mode of this. Darren by Design, there is a live stream for CSS Day, but you have to be a member of their YouTube channel. And then they do, so you can watch it live if you're a member, and if you're not a member, they put out, I think 2 months after the conference, 1 video a week goes public, if I remember right. I don't deal with print styles. Bluntman, you're the second person to bring them up. I didn't read the full comment on the other one, so I don't remember who said it. I sort of saw it in passing, something about print. I use InDesign if I need to print something, and I haven't touched that in a little while now. InDesign's like my favorite software though, but I haven't used it in years now. Can I make the chat 20 or 10% smaller? I could. For next stream. I'm not going to do it now, but I will make it smaller next time. Any scuttlebutt on the next Safari do it? No, I haven't heard anything. But they've been releasing stuff like slowly anyway. Like, yeah, I haven't heard anything new though. Now I'm curious. There's a comment that got grayed out and I don't know if it was deleted or not. Oh, okay, it's back. 1 second. Have I ever heard of a CSS methodology called namespaces? Namespaces CSS. Do you have a link to anything? I've heard of like CSS namespace module. I didn't know we had a module on namespaces. Is this just, yeah, okay. That's fine. That's really... I know there's like name spacing through different ways using different naming methodologies, but I don't know a specific one called namespaces. Would you go over a concept for a dynamic grid similar to how one might do a bootstrap grid concept using CSS grid? We could do something fast there. Why would loops never come to CSS? Sass has loops and it's great. Because of the type of language CSS is, and I don't know the official terminology here, but I was talking to Miriam Suzanne about it. And they are a certain type of language. It's not that it's declarative. Maybe it's declarative. In that you need to declare everything. My doorbell's about to ring again, I think. Oh no, my other son's home. Uh, 1 second. My son's currently planning a Nerf gun battle. He had to tell me all about it with his friends. Um, Let me see what I missed. Yeah, Venerable Taoist. I follow. I don't do exactly Cube, but I follow very similar to Cube. Kevin, do you think? What do you think about physical length units like centimeters or inches in media queries? I mean, dispose actual. Yeah, no, I would never use centimeters or inches because it depend. I would either use. I mean, pixels technically are based on an inch anyway, but it's so complicated and weird. Um, I would only use centimeters or inches if I was doing something that was printed. Then like, because you don't want to base it on a physical size, unless like the only like a printed page, you know the size of it. So then using centimeters and inches makes sense. You don't know the physical size of the things, especially with the way pixels work and everything. I'd be a nightmare, I think, to work in them. Any new innovations in CSS with AI? It's just all terrible, so don't you no. uh okay, so Amodius, that sounds like, yeah, it's when you prefix with like the different types of namespaces like that. There is an is it, I'm gonna mix up the one it is. That's not how you spell it. What's it called? There's is it object oriented CSS that does it that way? Or is it the other one? The one that starts with I. Let's go down further. I forget which one uses that. I never got into it, which is why. I'm pretty sure it was, because I thought it was Nicole Sullivan's. Maybe I'm wrong. Is it the other one? ITCSS. It is. ITCSS. I put one too many T's. Oh, it was right there. It was the link that was there. I went too fast when I saw the... Yeah, it would be this one. I never got into it. Yeah, there we go. No, oh, don't do this. Oh, it is doing that. Okay, they're saying don't do overly nested, maybe? I'm not sure. But yeah, ITCSS for... What does it stand for again? Oh, wait, that was underlined. That's probably inverted triangle CSS. There we go. I never got into it, and I keep forgetting when I do that. I apologize. But inverted triangle CSS, and it gives the example pure limited nesting and stuff. So it's like, is it a component? Is it a whatever, an object, and so on. I never got into it. I think there are good reasons for it. For the type of stuff I do, I don't bother using it, basically. Sorry about blocking the screen there. um, yeah, sorry, going back to the loops thing, it's not a functional language exactly. That's why they don't want to put loops in it. Yeah, Pico CSS. Uh, I've played around with Pico CSS. So Pico CSS, minimal CSS framework for semantic HTML. I love the idea of it. Um, but I just found like here it's, you know, instead of having to throw, I agree. Like this is, I love the example they give for it there, where, you know, we're looking at the difference between all the utility classes on it versus just using what they have. Let's go to their examples of a, which one should we do? Let's go to this one just for fun. So, I mean, basically, oh, they're just bringing it in like that. But I mean, it's sort of going back where it's very much through semantic CSS. Everything's getting styled properly. There are, which is 100% like the right first step on approaching things. Like there's no classes thrown on anything here. Let's just go look in the dev tools actually. So like here they have the different link types. Let's actually go look at those. Is that here, the links? So they do have like class secondary, class contrast, and things like that. But if we go and take a look in the dev tools, so like A, where the role is not a button. So if you have a link that's not a button, which is good that they're using role for button, role equals button if it looks like a button. That's interesting actually. But basically, yeah, it's about using the semantics. I think on some websites this could work fantastically. Like here, my H2 stylings are on it because it's a H2. It's just there are some certain limitations you can run into things with this. So, but I think a lot of, you know, just using semantic HTML, I think like this could be a really nice base layer to something. But and maybe I just haven't used it enough either. But I do think there's times where maybe going a little bit beyond could be useful. What they have, but for tons of stuff you could probably get away with, you could probably do a lot with it, more than I'm realizing. I don't even know how much it weighs either, their thing, version picker, color schemes. So like they have the dark mode, light mode, and everything else. It's well done, and it makes a lot of sense. But again, sometimes I think it's like the full opposite extreme of both BEM and utility classes in a way, which is good in a sense at the same time. Um, yeah, I agree. If you semantic styling is so much easier with what B1 said, where it's like if you're using scope styles with like JavaScript framework, and you just like view, I mean React sort of does it, but if you have React is more friendly to using something like Tailwind, whereas like Vue and Svelte and Astro, like you just throw your style block in there and then it just makes it so easy to style things that way. CSS scope's a bit different though. It's kind of, I'm curious to see how it works out once browser support's good enough. Do I take simple CSS? I have an issue with outlines plus focus states and two elements being right next to each other. Input and button. I wonder how, I mean, you mean that they're overlapping? I just would, depending on what it is, but like if say these didn't have a gap between them and the outline of one went into the on top of another element, I wouldn't stress about it too much probably. Nesting, scope, and layer is relative. Layer's not so bad. I think most projects don't need layer, but it's it has its advantages. Scope is weird. CSS scope is very strange. Oh, it's true. If you use scope style, that's probably the best use case for them is just to put the style tag in the element. But yeah, we can't do it for um, inputs or images or other stuff. Darren, by design, you want web components are awesome, but man, they're a little bit frustrating too, right? When you work on a large team, and so I disagree that utility classes like Tailwind are great for large teams. Or no, I don't say that. I say that having a robust CSS system in place that already exists is great when working in large teams. It doesn't have to be utility classes. As long as you have a really robust, good system set up so people can just use the existing classes that are there instead of having to write new stuff all the time. So like Tailwind's great because it just generates all of that stuff like out of the box. But if you have a good design system in place, and it's like Mike Aperture always says, like the less people you have writing CSS, the better. So if you have the workflow of going from like designer to CSS person to the rest of the team, and like one or two people are just working on the CSS side, like that to me is the ideal flow to get things to work well. And Tailwind's not a design system. It's like it's what it the popularity of Tailwind shows that design systems are what most JavaScript engineers would like to have. And I think that if they had them in place, that would be great. The problem is then you need someone who can work on it and develop it and maintain it. And for a lot of people, it's easier to say, well, we'll just use Tailwind instead, I think is what happens. The biggest issue I have with like Tailwind or other like pure utility class things is it it's the same reason that like even scoped styles run into issues as well, is just like this over componentization that gets created. And like if you want to do utility classes correctly, it gets to the point where you're basically doing what Pico's done, right? Where you've just styled each like you have a link and you have but instead of it being a link with a class on it, you have a link component and then you're varying components. And like if you have to if every single one of your elements becomes a component, just use a style sheet. The whole add apply being this add-on that they don't want you to use in Tailwind, to me is like the backwards. Like to me, if that was pushed more, I think I could get behind it a lot more. But they see it as like this add-on that they wish they never had added to it. And yeah, Tailwind's not even like Tailwind UI would be more for. I mean, Tailwind can be used for quick prototyping, but like B1 saying Bootstrap is Tailwind UI is where like the elements already come styled. That's when it's more of like quick prototyping. The CS is trick question. Is CSS a programming language? It's not a trick question. It clearly is. We have if statements coming to CSS. If you have if in CSS, then like come on. There's not even like a weird argument you have to make anymore, right? Is if working in here? I don't remember how if works. If CSS function. Uh, does this show if? Oh, can we use it like that? 1 second. How's it going to work? It is if style. I didn't realize that for some reason. So it's basically building on top of how style queries work then, right? Let me just try that. I don't know if it worked. Is it anywhere? Is can I use even show? It might not even have. Features experimental. Is this even the CSS? Types. Oh, it is. Okay. It's in Chrome 137. I've never used, we're doing all experimental CSS today. We might as well see if this can work. Where's my code pen? uh, background color. If variant success. Oh, is CodePen not going to like this? Unexpected closing bracket on line 46. Why is that an unexpected closing? Oh, there we go. Whoops. Red, blue, green. It's definitely not working then. It's using this background color. Invalid property value. If variant, just to try. If anyone knows why it's not working, did I miss? Oh, that would help. Thank you. It could just be I don't have the right thing on to make it work because the whole value is saying it's not supported. Remove. Do I have? Oh, no, that didn't fix it either. But it shouldn't matter where variant is actually. If this isn't like we should be getting it, if this isn't working, because if it was working, even if it wasn't finding the style, we would be getting the red. Mr. Fearless, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Let's try and get this working. Back into the spec. That's the entire spec. Oh god, okay. If the function isn't arbitrary, as you can see, we're in the editor's draft. Editor's draft means it's very early. A working draft is past this stage, right? Editor's draft is when it's still, yeah, you do editor's draft, then the working drafts, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think that's why it's in red, is like, be careful. Its argument consists of an ordered semicolon separated list of statements, each consisting of a condition followed by a colon followed by a value. An if function represents da 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 da. The syntax is like this. If, oh wait, I might be missing a semicolon in there somewhere. I really wish they gave an example because I hate trying to look at these and figure out what's going on. I understand how it works. Else, keyword represents a condition that is always true. The if function's argument grammar is. Okay, let's go look at my semicolons again. I feel like I'm missing a semicolon somewhere in here that I would need. I really wish they'd put an example in the documentation. Oh, here. They do have one. If style, the baz. The style query is automatically false since property replacement has already been established. Oh God. To replace an if function given a list of arguments, in the way I'm using it now, a style query would be easy enough to do. Ask ChatGPT. No thanks. Um, my brackets are okay, but I might. Let's go back to this. If this, then that. That makes sense. Let's just try that. No, but my if they're nest. God, that's a nightmare. This makes if six, so you can list out a whole bunch of different options, and it's all related. So style queries, I understand how those work. So I could do this as a style query, but if has more options. Which one of these is the 2024? These are. Let's check this one out. Leia's the one who's making this happen. Um, okay, let's just try it with one and not have the fallback. If this red, what if I just did that? Oh wait, I thought I was in Chrome Canary. This is Chrome Canary. Oh, it's probably better that I didn't save that because this is actually a demo file that I had from something else that I want to keep. So we'll fork that, and I'm just going to put playing with if. Playing with if. That might be on a different version of Chrome on my older one. Nth child 3. Let's just try if style var if style. Oh man, I already forgot how they did it. Let's just bring in if. Okay, so they're not putting the var, they're just saying if it is that. So if style test. Is it comma? Oh, this is learning new things sucks. That was in my other window. Let's copy this. Background color. If style variant success, then it should be red. Now it won't be red because this is obviously not working, but that's my third one. The color is coming up as blue. And to me, it shouldn't even be blue. It should just not be anything. It's still saying invalid. Possible. I don't know. If people, it is possible. I just don't have. Comma in article, but colon in spec. CSS is hard, yes. Oh, there we go. That worked. Nice. So it's not true. So it's, yeah, the article had a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Probably when they wrote that article, it was a comma. So that, there. Okay. So then if we came on this element and we said variant is variant with an A is success. Hey, there we go. And is this where I could do like a red blue? Would that work? No. It's weird because in my dev tools, it's sort of showing that as working. It's showing me the blue there. Okay, now I have to go back. Is there an else? Where was the article? Well, the article was in my other window. I think I closed it. I might have closed it. Um, if red semicolon blue. That can't be right, can it? No, that just broke the whole thing. Okay, good. I was worried that would work. This actually makes sense that I can do a red blue. I think I read this in Leia's article actually. Like this is considered valid. It's not working because background color red blue doesn't make sense. But this could be like red blue is considered a single value in this case. And the reason for that is, say this wasn't a background color, but we did a background of linear gradient, and the linear gradient, whatever, I wouldn't do it like this if I was actually doing an if statement. But now linear gradient, whatever, it's not working in this case either, but that's the idea, is like it would pass red blue into there. And it could be even just because of my semicolon that I had that was breaking it, and put the semicolon here. Still not working, but that's the idea, is this is what should be getting passed down, right? I think that's the idea. This is super experimental though. Oh, I didn't have the variant. Thank you. Variant of success. Whoops. Variant success. There we go. It does work. Okay, cool. So that's why I could put a comma separated list and stuff there. Basically, it can accept whatever you need it to accept. And we can try that. Red, blue. Now the question, I see the else in there. Would it be here? Else is green, green, just for fun. It's interesting because it's, oh, and then, that worked. Okay, cool. So let's put this on a few lines. If success, red, blue, else green to yellow, let's say. Nice. Okay. So you do put a semicolon inside to then break onto your else statement if you want one. And you don't need the else statement, right? The else, I think in this case, I would only use if, I'm trying to think if I would do it like this. Maybe you would. Maybe you would. As like your fallback at the very end. But the example they showed where they just had like a whole bunch of if statements makes more sense. Like say you did if 4 different variants and then whatever. Yeah. This is, do not use if in production right now. It's in Chromium only in the newest like apps, I think 137, which I don't even know if that's shipped in stable yet. And it's experimental still. It's just they want us to play with it and find problems with it. And again, I don't think it should get shipped in stable, in my opinion, until it's fixed or until it's like settled on. Like when something's in editor's draft, I don't think they should hit stable. But that's just me complaining. But it's cool that we have them and they're working on them. There's a few other new things that we should play with too in future streams. Like we have sibling count. Okay, we're gonna look at it now. I have to get off now. But CSS sibling count, and let's see how these work, because I haven't used them either. Talked to Adam Argyle about them a lot, and then I never actually got to play with them. I don't want all these nth child. I want the sibling count. Show me how to use sibling count. This is just how to simulate one, I think. This is how to wait for it. That's there. Here's from Adam, but does this have an example? I don't even know if sibling count is in the newest versions either. I forget. Next, sibling count. I'm pretty sure it made it in. Is this working, or is this another one of those example ones? Sibling, no, they're using the sibling index again. We have a way to do it that's coming. I don't know if it's here yet. Find sibling count. Oops, sibling. There it is. Sibling count and sibling index, which gets like the index of the sibling. I knew they were here. I'm not going to go through all of this right now. This will be for the next one, and I'm assuming it's in the newest Chrome, but I'm not even sure. Yeah, it's cool. You can use its own index as part of a calc. That's really cool. That'd be for me, like, you could like rotate through a hue on something that way really easily, right? Like you take the index, you multiply the hue by 10, and then you're just alternating the hue through something with one line of CSS instead of having to have an nth child for each one of them or whatever. It's gonna be, yeah, sibling index and sibling count are gonna be awesome, and we'll save that for the next live stream because I do have to go. And so thank you all for coming and hanging out with me. It was a lot of fun. If you missed the beginning of it, we went through a more structured introduction on a really awesome CSS feature that's coming with reading flow and reading order that I think are going to be awesome. And then we're going to be, yeah, hopefully coming soon. And then the last half of it was more just jumping all over the place and playing around with stuff. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. And until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.